Hello everybody, so what a card that was. Just, well, not just, it was a few hours ago, but UFC Columbus with Blades versus Dacus as the main event, and JoJo Wood versus Grasso in the co-main event. Had to make sure I was right about that. I did make a video with the research I had before this fight card, but that's going to change. I will be making content more so now on MMA, DFS, and all that jazz. So expect, assuming that there's MMA every Saturday, which there isn't. Like next week, there isn't any MMA or UFC anyway, but the majority of the weeks there are. So I am going to have probably 2 videos a week. I'll probably miss a few uploads because I'm lazy, but I will be here to show my research. So, and then after the card, I will share my review and my thoughts on the card. So, I'm going to do my thoughts and reviews for Blades vs. Dacus, UFC Columbus, right here, right now. Alright, so let's start with Blades. He showed he can stand and bang with a good acclaimed striker, and I really like that about him, man. If you have a fighter that's so good on the ground, but also can fight and stand up and swing, it's just a great, well-rounded fighter that's just important. That's really important. He has good head movement to negate any power that Dacus threw at him, which is just great, obviously. And Blades, he finished the fight with a straight right down the middle, landed flush on the eye socket of Dacus. Kind of took the legs off of him, dropped, and a few ground and pound strikes later, Herb Dean jumped and stopped the fight. Lovely fight by Blades. What did he score? And on DraftKings, he costed $9,200 salary and scored 92, which was in the optimal lineup, and he was around 58% owned. So, highly owned, but in the optimal lineup, which means it's worth it. Now let's go on to Grasso, which I thought was the MVP of the night because of the rear naked choke finish that she had on JoJo Wood in the first round. Grasso proved herself of her striking and showed great grappling prowess, which means well-rounded. Really fun fighter. I liked watching her. It's my first time watching her fight because I've only gotten into the MMA scene about a year and a half ago. So I haven't seen that many fighters in reality. And she got right to the point on the ground, didn't really waste too much movement or time, which is important, and I like that. And she was only around 10% owned in the contests that I was in, which is great, especially since she scored the second highest on DraftKings. So, she was $9,000 salary, 117.25 fantasy points on DraftKings, and 9.95% owned is the exact number. And Hizriev, I'm not so sure on how to say his last name, but he came through big in his UFC debut with a beautiful striking display against Dennis Teoliolian. I'm probably not saying that right, but I'm just gonna call him Dennis. Dennis the Menace. Dennis showed pretty good potential. I think if you put him up against somebody not as already super Oh, what is the word I'm trying to come up with here? I have no clue what I'm trying to say. But super well-rounded and good already in Hizriev or Kizriev. He probably wins. Dennis looked good. I like Dennis. And I'm excited to see how they fight. And both of them have bright futures as fighters. Chris Gutierrez definitely got the finish of the night, the knockout of the night, which beautiful spinning backhand. He just bow right to Bakary Dana's just lovely. And Bakary Dana is also a knockout artist. 3 straight knockouts before this fight. That was a fun fight. Ended pretty quick. I think it was a second round finish. But, yeah. I like that. And Chris Gutierrez, definitely somebody to keep an eye on, which he's already acclaimed, he's already good, so. But keep an eye on him for making a push for the championship this year, or maybe early next year. And Brian Barberena versus Matt Brown was the fight of the night for sure. Crazy. Matt Brown got so many takedowns, especially that, like the leg sweep that he would do. Just amazing. Looked so effortless, but I had Matt Brown winning, but by a split decision, and Barberena took it. I thought Matt Brown was going to win the fight, and that's kind of who I based a lot of my lineups around, so I didn't do great this week, but there's a lot of weird underdogs, so don't blame anybody for having a down week in the MMA DFS scene. Matt Brown had 5 takedowns, and Brown looked really good for being in his 40s, which is impressive. They were swinging and banging for sure towards the end of that. And Mark Giacchese showed a grappling masterclass for being mainly known as a striker. It was very impressive. 11 takedowns by Giacchese against Borshev, which Borshev is such a fan favorite that I kind of thought that his value and the people taking him would be way high. So I avoided him almost all my lineups, except for one. And that paid off. I took a lot of Giacchese. And, well, he was the highest scorer on the card with 118 points. And, 118.72 fantasy points on DraftKings. And he only cost 7,500. So, very good. Definitely. And also, another little thing to add, he had 12 minutes of ground control time in a 15-minute fight, which is just ridiculous. So, yeah. I wrote that this is how I acknowledged that fight. He uprooted the success of Borshev with his slams and takedowns. Because a lot of the takedowns he landed were slams, where he'd just pick him up and he'd just drop him on his back and neck, which was nasty. And so here is the optimal DraftKings lineup for Blades versus Dawkins, UFC Columbus. It was Grasso, 9,000 salary, and she was about 10% owned, 117 points. Blades with 9,200 salary and 92 points and about 58% owned, which is very hefty, but when you're in the optimal, you're good. Giacchese, I don't know how to say his name. Mark Giacchese, he was 7,500 with 118.7 fantasy points, and he was about 27.7% owned on DraftKings. And Gutierrez was about 7,700 salary-wise, and he scored 97 fantasy points and was about 22.7% owned as well. McMahon, definitely an underdog. I didn't have that one. Impressive fight though. She controlled that fight pretty easily. 7,300 salary, and she scored 88 points, which is by far, out of all the cards I've watched, the lowest I've seen on a optimal lineup for a fighter scored. Normally you got all 96 pluses, which this card is really weird. The Latifi and Olenek fight was canceled 30 minutes before it started, and that really affected a lot of lineups, so I understand. And she scored 88 points, and 21.29% owned was McMahon on DraftKings. And Kizriev was 9,300, which, for being a minus 1,000 or minus 1,250 odds to win fighter, he definitely should have been the highest. But Manon Fior was the highest salary-wise, which she fought well, and I think she got 80-something points. But still, with Kizriev being the second highest salary fighter, he was almost a lock in all of your lineups. And he was in the optimal with 104.1 fantasy points and 53% owned. So really two pieces of chalk there, and then you had to have Grasso. Grasso was the one that made your lineup money. So, and I had like hardly any Grasso this week, which was a big issue. So I didn't do great. But sportsbook wise, I did pretty good. And now my best lineup was, I'll just list it, and I'll list the salaries here on DraftKings. Matt Brown, 8,200. He scored 69 points, which was one of the bigger stinkers. 33.5% owned, so pretty high. And for only scoring 69, you really don't like that at all. Gutierrez, 7,700 salary, and scored 97 points, fantasy points, and 22.7% owned. Liked that I got him. He was an underdog coming into this fight. Landed an amazing strike, so just happy to see that I had him. I had a lot of him too, I think 16 or 17 lineups made. I had like almost half exposure to him. David Dvorak with 8,400. That fight I was really high on, David Dvorak versus Nicolau, and it didn't produce. I mean, the first round they were just going around and around in the cage doing nothing. So you live and you learn. Maybe you shouldn't take David Dvorak or Nicolau again, but still good performance from Nicolau. Nevertheless, but he was 8,400 salary and scored 22 points, which I have to say this is the worst I've ever performed on a UFC lineup. So, well, UFC slate. So, a lot of people had that same issue, but could have been better for sure. And David Dvorak was 18.5% owned, so getting on the lower side, but still pretty high. I had Manon Fior next with 9,400. Crazy that she was a higher salary than Kizriev, but she scored 81.5 fantasy points on DraftKings and was a 24.5% ownage. I was a little nervous because I thought it looked like she was kind of limping at the weigh-ins, but she came out there and dominated her fight, so there wasn't really a big issue when it came to in-ring or in-octagon fight. And she will be, I think she might be the champion at the end of 2022. I had Magny at 8,800 on DraftKings with 74.8 fantasy points and was owned 18.2%. Good pick, but if he would have got 10 more points, then that would have boosted me a lot. And then I had Mark Diakisi, and he scored 118.7 fantasy points and was 7,500 salary and 27.7% owned. So definitely the hit there. You had to have Grasso and Diakisi in your lineup to even be in talks of having some good money coming into your bankroll. So out of 59,500 people, I placed 8,000th. So, I was in the top 6 or 7%, but you want to be top 1% or top 2 at least in a bulkier lineup. So, it wasn't a great night for me, but you live and you learn, and we got 2 weeks to focus on the next card, which is going to be a banger with Aljamain Sterling, and it's going to be a fun card. So I will see you. I guess I won't be making an MMA lineup or MMA DFS video until probably Monday or Tuesday next week, not 2 days from now, or I guess it would be a day from now when I release this, because I think I plan on releasing it on Sunday, but not tomorrow or the day after, but a week from tomorrow is when I will be probably maybe coming back and talking, but I might do a little bit more research and come out with a Wednesday or Thursday video, and then I will definitely get back to you Saturday night or Sunday with my thoughts and notes and reviews on the card. So that will be fun. And with that, I'll see y'all on the next DFS episode. Peace.